I have 47 seconds of crystal clear Bigfoot footage on this phone. Full body, broad daylight, close enough to see its face. 5 years ago, a cryptozoologist offered me $50,000 for it, and major networks were ready to make me famous. But what this creature did right before I hit record changed everything I thought I knew about intelligence, communication, and what we're really hunting for in those woods. And here's what I need you to understand. If something brought you a gift, looked you directly in the eyes, and trusted you with the biggest secret on earth, would you betray that trust for proof? Let me back up. My name is Rachel, and I'm a data analyst. I spend my days staring at spreadsheets, finding patterns in numbers, making sense of information. I like facts. I like things I can measure and prove. Before all this happened, if you'd asked me about Bigfoot, I would have laughed. Not in a mean way, just in that polite way people do when someone brings up UFOs or ghosts at a dinner party. I would have said something like, well, that's interesting, and then changed the subject. This was back in 2020, right after my divorce went through. The kind of divorce where you split everything down the middle and realize you don't really want any of it. The house felt empty. My friends kept calling to check on me, which somehow made me feel worse. I needed to disappear for a while. Not forever, just long enough to remember what it felt like to be alone without feeling lonely. I'd been backpacking since college. Real backpacking, not the kind where you stay in cabins or have cell service. I liked being in places where the only sounds were wind and water and my own footsteps. So I picked a trail in Northern California, way up in the mountains, the kind of place that doesn't show up on most maps. It was late October, off-season, cold enough that most people had already packed up their camping gear for the year. I threw my pack in the car and drove north for 6 hours. The farther I went, the fewer cars I saw. The radio stations faded to static, then nothing. Just me and the road and the trees getting taller on both sides. By the time I reached the trailhead, it was almost noon. The parking area was empty except for one old truck that looked like it had been there for weeks. I signed the logbook, shouldered my pack, and walked into the forest. The first 2 days were perfect, cold and clear. The kind of weather where you can see your breath in the morning, but by afternoon, you are warm enough to hike in just a long-sleeve shirt. I saw exactly 3 other people. A couple on day 1 heading back to their car, a solo hiker on day 2 who nodded at me and kept walking. That was it, just how I wanted it. On the second night, I made camp near a small stream. The sound of running water helps me sleep. I gathered wood for a fire, breaking dead branches off trees, snapping them into smaller pieces. That's when I heard it. 3 knocks, loud and clear. Wood on wood. Knock, knock, knock. I stopped moving and listened. Nothing. Just the stream and the wind in the pines. I went back to breaking branches. Snap, snap, snap. Then again, knock, knock, knock. Same rhythm, same spacing, coming from somewhere off to my left. Maybe 50 yards into the trees. I stood there holding a stick, feeling stupid. It was probably just a woodpecker or another camper setting up their tent. But something about the timing felt wrong. Too perfect. Too much like an answer. I told myself I was being paranoid. Divorce brain, I called it. That jumpy feeling you get when you're used to sharing space with someone and suddenly you're alone. I finished gathering wood, made my fire, ate my freeze-dried dinner, and climbed into my tent as the sun went down. That's when the circling started. I heard footsteps, not little animal footsteps, big ones, heavy, something walking around my camp in a wide loop. It would walk for a minute, stop, then start again. Always the same distance away, never coming closer, never leaving. I lay in my sleeping bag, flashlight in one hand, bear spray in the other, listening. My heart was pounding so hard I could hear it in my ears. The rational part of my brain made a list. Bear, definitely a bear. They're curious. They investigate camps. Totally normal, but bears don't walk in circles for 3 hours. And they don't stop and stare like they're thinking. By the time the footsteps finally faded away, it was past midnight. I didn't sleep much after that. The next morning, I walked the perimeter of my camp looking for tracks. The ground was hard and covered in pine needles. I found a few scuff marks, but nothing clear. Nothing I could point to and say, that's what it was. I made coffee, packed up my tent, and told myself I was being ridiculous. This is what I came here for, to be alone, to be uncomfortable, to remember that the world is bigger than spreadsheets and divorce papers and empty houses. I kept hiking. The trail followed the stream uphill, through groves of pine and fir trees, so tall they blocked out most of the sky. It was beautiful, the kind of beauty that makes you understand why people believe in something bigger than themselves. I was starting to relax again, starting to feel like myself. Then on day 3, I found the footprint. I was following the creek to refill my water bottles. The trail had gotten rougher, rockier, and I'd been drinking more than I expected. My bottles were nearly empty and my throat felt dry. The creek was running clear and cold, tumbling over smooth stones. I picked my way down the slope toward the water, watching my footing on the loose rocks. That's when I saw it. Right there in the mud at the edge of the creek. A footprint. My brain tried to make it make sense. Barefoot, I thought, someone hiking barefoot. But even as I thought it, I knew it was wrong. The print was huge, longer than my hiking boot by at least 5 inches, maybe more. I set my boot next to it to compare. Mine looked like a child's shoe. It had 5 toes, clear impressions of each one. The mud around it was pressed down deep, like whatever made it was heavy. Really heavy. I could see where the heel had sunk in, where the toes had gripped. The stride between this print and the next one was long. Farther apart than I could step, even if I tried. My hands were shaking as I pulled out my phone. I took 6 photos from different angles. Close-ups of the toes. Wide shots showing the whole print next to my boot. I kept looking over my shoulder while I did it, suddenly very aware that I was alone. That whatever made this print had been here recently. The edges of the print were still sharp, not washed away by rain or filled in by wind. I stood up and listened. The forest had gone quiet, not silent, but quiet in a way that felt heavy. No birds, no squirrels chattering in the trees, just the sound of the creek and my own breathing. Then I heard splashing. Upstream, maybe 40 or 50 yards, something moving through the water. Big splashes, not the little sounds a deer would make. Every smart part of me said to turn around, go back to the trail, fill your water somewhere else, get out of here. But another part of me, the part that had driven 6 hours to be alone in the wilderness, that part wanted to know, needed to know. I left my pack on the ground, kept my phone in my hand, and started walking upstream along the bank. The splashing stopped. I stopped too, waited, started walking again, quieter this time, trying to step on rocks instead of sticks. The creek bent to the left around a pile of boulders. I crept up to the edge and looked around. There was a figure standing in the water. At first, my brain said person, someone else out here, bent over looking for something in the creek. But then it stood up, fully upright, and it was wrong. Too tall, way too tall. The proportions were off. Arms too long, shoulders too wide, covered in dark brown hair that looked wet and matted. It was facing away from me, about 30 feet upstream. I could see its back, its shoulders moving as it shifted its weight. Then it turned its head. Not its whole body, just its head, looking back over its shoulder. Looking right at me. Our eyes met. I couldn't move, couldn't breathe, couldn't think. Its face was flat, not like a gorilla, more human but not human. Dark eyes, no white showing, just dark, looking at me with what I can only describe as curiosity. We stared at each other for what felt like an hour but was probably 5 or 6 seconds. Then it made a sound, not a roar, not a growl, a soft vocalization, almost like a question, a low sound that came from deep in its chest. My hand moved on its own, fumbling with my phone, trying to open the camera. My fingers felt thick and clumsy. I couldn't make them work right. By the time I got the camera open, it had turned away. Not fast, not scared. It just turned and walked toward the far bank. Each step was smooth and purposeful. Not like a bear. Bears lumber. This moved like a person, but bigger, heavier. I hit record as it stepped out of the water. Got maybe 12 seconds of shaky footage before it walked into the tree line and disappeared. Just gone, like it had never been there. I stood there for a long time, phone still up, still recording empty forest. My legs felt like water. I played the video back, right there, hands shaking so hard I almost dropped the phone. But it was there, on my screen. The figure standing in the creek, turning, walking away. You could see its body structure, the way it moved, part of its face and profile when it looked back. The sound it made was on the recording too, that low, questioning sound. I watched it 20 times standing on that creek bank. Then I stumbled back to my pack, sat down hard on a rock, and watched it 20 more times. Every time I thought maybe I'd imagined it, I'd see some new detail. The muscles in its back, the way its hand looked when it steadied itself on a rock, the individual strands of hair moving in the breeze. This wasn't a costume. This wasn't a trick. This was real. I didn't refill my water bottles. I hiked back to my camp in a daze, checking the video every few minutes to make sure it was still there. When I got back, I sat in my tent with my sleeping bag wrapped around me even though it wasn't cold, and I watched that 12-second clip over and over, frame by frame. I zoomed in on every part I could. The more I looked, the more I saw. This was it. This was what people had been searching for, what researchers had spent their whole lives trying to prove. And I had it, right here, on my phone. As the sun went down, one thought kept circling in my head. I'm not alone out here anymore. And whatever that was, it knows I'm here too. I didn't sleep that night. Not really. I'd close my eyes and then snap them open, listening. Every sound felt huge. A branch cracking somewhere in the dark. Wind pushing through the trees. My own heart beating in my ears. I kept my headlamp on inside the tent, which I knew was stupid. If something was out there, the light just made me easier to see. But the dark felt worse. Around midnight, I heard them. Footsteps. Slower than the night before. Heavier. They came from the direction of the creek, moving through the forest toward my camp. I sat up in my sleeping bag, barely breathing. The steps stopped maybe 20 feet from my tent. I waited. Nothing. Just silence so thick it felt like pressure in my head. Then 3 knocks. Wood on wood. Knock, knock, knock. Clear and deliberate. The same rhythm I'd heard 2 nights ago. The same rhythm I'd made when I was breaking branches for my fire. My hand reached for my bear spray without thinking. I held it up, finger on the trigger, pointing at the tent wall like that would do anything. I don't know what made me do what I did next. Maybe it was the data analyst part of my brain, the part that looks for patterns and tests theories. Maybe I was just tired of being scared. But I reached over, picked up my water bottle, and knocked it against a tree root 3 times. Knock, knock, knock. The answer came immediately. 3 knocks from a different spot. Closer, maybe 15 feet away now. Off to my right, I knocked again. 3 more knocks answered, this time from my left. It had moved, fast and quiet, circling my tent. I sat there frozen, bear spray still up, realizing that whatever was out there wasn't trying to scare me. It was communicating, having a conversation, and I just answered back. Nothing else happened that night. No more footsteps, no more knocks. But I didn't sleep. I sat there until the sky started to get light, watching the tent walls for shadows, listening for any sound that didn't belong. When morning finally came, I was exhausted and wired at the same time. My hands were shaking from too much adrenaline and not enough rest. I crawled out of my tent, expecting to find tracks or broken branches or some sign that I hadn't imagined at all. The ground around my camp looked normal. Pine needles, a few scuffed spots where I'd been walking. Nothing clear, nothing I could photograph and say, look, proof, but then I saw it. There was a flat rock near my fire pit, about the size of a dinner plate. I'd walked past it 20 times setting up camp. I knew that rock, and I knew what had been on it yesterday. Nothing. This morning there were 3 fish laid out on top of it, not thrown, not dropped, arranged, side by side, fresh caught, their scales still shiny, their eyes still clear. I stood there staring at them for a long time. My brain kept trying to find another explanation. A bird dropped them. No, birds don't carry 3 fish at once. Another camper left them. No, there's nobody else out here. They washed up from the creek. No, the creek is 40 yards downhill, and fish don't jump that far. Finally, I had to accept the only explanation that made sense. Something brought these to me. Something caught them in the creek, carried them up here, and laid them out on a rock where I'd find them. It brought me food. The thought made my skin prickle. This wasn't random. This was intentional, deliberate. This was a gift. I didn't eat the fish. I know people who would have. People who'd say free protein, don't waste it. But touching them felt wrong, like accepting something I didn't understand. I left them on the rock and started packing up my camp. I'd planned to stay 5 more days, but something in me said it was time to go. Not because I was scared exactly, because things were happening too fast and I needed space to think. I was rolling up my tent when I heard the crash. Not close, maybe 100 yards into the forest, but loud. The sound of something big moving through thick brush, breaking branches. Then I heard another sound, a snarl, high-pitched and angry, a cat sound. Mountain lion, my brain supplied. I'd heard them before on other trips. Once you hear that sound, you never forget it. More crashing. Closer now. Something was running or fighting. I couldn't tell which. Then a roar, not a lion roar, deeper, rougher. It hit me in the chest like a wave of sound. My hands fumbled with my phone, pulling it out of my pocket. I opened the camera without thinking. Just muscle memory. Point in record. Document what's happening. Maybe it's the analyst in me. Maybe it's just human nature. The crashing got louder, branches snapping like gunshots. Then it burst out of the tree line. A male, bigger than the one I'd seen at the creek, taller, broader, covered in dark reddish-brown hair. It was dragging something. A mountain lion. Dead. Its body limp, head rolling. The creature had it by the back leg, pulling it like it weighed nothing. My phone was up. Recording. I couldn't move. Couldn't breathe. The creature was maybe 50 feet away. Clear view, bright morning sunlight. No shadows, no blur. Just there. Real, solid, massive. It dropped the lion between us. Not close to me, not far away, right in the middle. The body hit the ground with a heavy thud. Then it looked at me. Direct eye contact. Its eyes were lighter than the female's, almost amber in the sun. We stared at each other. 5 seconds. 10. My phone was still recording. I could hear the tiny whir of the camera. The creature's chest was rising and falling, breathing hard from the fight or the run or both. It made a sound, one word. At least it sounded like a word. Neka. The syllables were clear, distinct. It pointed at the lion, then at me, then back at the lion. Neka. Then it stepped backward. Not turning around, not running, just backing away, keeping its eyes on me the whole time. 1 step, 2 steps, 3. It reached the tree line and kept going. Branches closed around it, and it was gone. I stood there shaking, phone still up, still recording empty forest. 47 seconds. That's how long the whole thing lasted. I checked the video right there, watched it twice. The creature emerging, dragging the lion, dropping it, looking at me, the sound it made. That one clear word, all of it, was there. Crystal clear, no blur, no question. This was it. This was proof. Real, undeniable proof, and I had it in my hand. I packed up the rest of my gear in a fog. My hands moved on their own, rolling the sleeping bag, stuffing the tent into its sack, clipping everything to my pack. But my mind was somewhere else, on that phone in my pocket, on those 47 seconds of video, on what I was going to do with it. The hike back to the trailhead took 3 hours. I barely noticed. I kept pulling out my phone to make sure the video was still there. Watched it, checked the battery, watched it again. Every detail burned into my brain. The way the creature moved, the sound it made, that word, Neka, the way it looked right at me before backing away. Not scared, not aggressive, just aware, intelligent. When I got to my car, I sat in the driver's seat for 20 minutes before starting the engine. My phone had 2 bars of signal now. Texts started coming in, friends checking on me, work emails, the normal world flooding back. I looked at the video one more time, then I drove. The ranger station was 15 miles down the mountain, a small wooden building with a porch and a flagpole out front. I'd stopped there on my way up to get trail information. Now I pulled into the parking lot and sat there with the engine running. Part of me knew this was a mistake, but another part, the rational part, said you have to report this. You saw something. You have evidence. This is what you're supposed to do. Inside, a ranger sat at a desk doing paperwork. Older guy, gray hair, the kind of face that's seen everything. He looked up when I came in. "How was your trip?" he asked. "Good," I said. Then, "Actually, I saw something. Up by Granite Creek, something strange." His pen stopped moving. "Strange how?" I told him. Tried to keep it simple. Saw a large figure by the creek, taller than a person, covered in hair, walked on two legs. The whole time I talked, I watched his face. He kept it neutral, professional, but something shifted in his eyes. When I finished, he leaned back in his chair. "Bears stand up sometimes," he said, "especially when they're curious. People see them from a distance and the proportions can look off." "It wasn't a bear," I said. "Elk can look pretty big too, especially the bulls. In certain light." "I have video," I said. The room went quiet. He sat forward again. "Video?" "On my phone, 47 seconds, clear footage, daylight." His whole posture changed. He wasn't bored anymore. He wasn't humoring me. "Can I see it?" I pulled out my phone, started to open it, then stopped. Something in his voice, in the way he'd leaned in. It reminded me of the way people look at lottery tickets, at treasure maps, like they were already spending money they didn't have. My thumb hovered over the screen. "My battery's almost dead," I lied. "I need to charge it first." "I'll send it to you later." I gave him my email address, wrote it down on a piece of paper, promised I'd send the video as soon as I got home. Then I walked out before he could ask more questions. My heart was pounding. In the car, I sat there breathing hard, phone clutched in my hand. Why had I lied? Why hadn't I shown him? I didn't have an answer, just a bad feeling in my gut. I drove straight through, 6 hours back home, didn't stop except for gas. When I got to my apartment, I plugged in my phone and started searching. Bigfoot researchers, cryptozoologists, people who studied this stuff for real. I found a name that kept coming up. Dr. Marcus Webb. He'd written books, been on documentaries, had a website with contact information. I sent him an email, kept it vague, said I had footage from Northern California. Possible Bigfoot sighting, clear video, wanted his professional opinion. Then I waited. He responded in 20 minutes. His email was 3 paragraphs long, but the important part was at the end. If what you're describing is genuine, this could be the most important documentation in cryptozoology history. I'm available to authenticate immediately. Can you send the video? I sent it, watched the upload bar fill, pressed send, then sat there staring at my screen feeling like I'd just done something I couldn't take back. Dr. Webb called me an hour later. I could hear it in his voice before he even spoke. Excitement, the kind that makes people talk too fast and forget to breathe. "I've watched it 30 times, he said. "I've analyzed the movement, the proportions, the muscle structure, the way light hits the hair. Rachel, this is real. This is species-defining evidence." "So what happens now?" I asked. "We need to verify it. Independent analysis, other experts. We'll need to establish the location, check for signs of digital manipulation, rule out any possibility of a hoax, then we publish." Peer review. This will be in journals, news outlets. This will change everything. Will people go there to where I filmed it? Absolutely. Once this is verified, there will be expeditions, research teams. We'll need to document the habitat, look for more evidence, possibly establish a monitoring station. Armed expeditions? There was a pause. We take safety seriously. These are large, powerful animals. We don't know their temperament. Research teams will need to be prepared. Prepared with guns. For protection, yes. Standard protocol for wildlife research in remote areas. I closed my eyes, saw the creature backing away into the trees, saw the fish on the rock, heard those 3 knocks in the dark. "What happened when they found the ivory-billed woodpecker?" I asked. "Back in 2004? I don't follow." They thought it was extinct. Then someone got footage of one in Arkansas. What happened after? Another pause. There was significant interest. Research activity in the area increased. And the habitat became compromised. Too many people, too much disruption. They never confirmed another sighting. So they destroyed what they were trying to study. That's not a fair comparison. This is different. But it wasn't different. I'd spent the next 3 days reading everything I could find. Stories about rare animals being rediscovered. What happened when their locations became known? Gorillas that got poached, birds that lost their nesting sites, fish that disappeared from streams once people knew where to find them. And everywhere the same pattern. Discovery, excitement, crowds, destruction. I found forums where people talked about Bigfoot hunting, not research, hunting. One guy said he'd pay $100,000 for a body, proof, a specimen. Another talked about darting one and bringing it in alive. For science, he wrote. The comments below were full of people talking about what kind of rifle would work best, what caliber, what range. On the fourth day, Dr. Webb called again. We need to move forward, he said. I have colleagues ready to review, news outlets asking questions. This can't stay quiet much longer. I need more time, I said. Rachel, every day we wait is a day someone else might get footage, might get credit. This is your discovery, your evidence. Don't you want the world to know? I thought about the creature's eyes, the way it had looked at me. Not like prey looks at a predator. Not like an animal looks at a human. Like a person looks at another person. Wary, curious, aware. And I thought about leading armed teams into those mountains, into its home, to study it, to capture it, to prove it was real. I lost the video, I told him. What? I went back to the creek to get more footage. My phone fell into the water. It's gone. The silence on the other end was like a weight. When he finally spoke, his voice was different, cold. That's incredibly irresponsible. Do you understand what you've done? That footage was irreplaceable. I know. This is the most significant cryptozoological finding in modern history, and you lost it because you weren't careful? I'm sorry, he hung up. I sat there holding my dead phone, feeling sick, but also relieved. I backed up the video to an old phone, one that had never been connected to the internet, never synced to the cloud. Then I deleted it from my main phone, deleted the backup, deleted my email account, deleted everything. The only copy left was on that old phone. I put it in a drawer, locked it, and tried to forget about it. That was 5 years ago. The old phone is still in my drawer. I take it out sometimes when I can't sleep, charge it up, watch those 47 seconds in the dark. Every time I see something new, the way the creature's hand grips the lion's leg, the individual hairs move in the breeze, the intelligence in those eyes. And every time, I'm glad I kept it to myself. Life moved on the way it does. I got better at my job, made new friends, went on other camping trips, though never back to that mountain. I moved to a house with a backyard, small but enough room for a garden, and I started leaving my bedroom window open at night. Not for the breeze, for the sound. Sometimes, maybe twice a year, I hear them. 3 knocks on my fence. Always at night, always when it's quiet. The first time it happened, I thought I was imagining it. The second time, I went outside, stood on my back porch in my pajamas, looking into the dark. Nothing. Just the sound of wind in the trees at the edge of my property. But I knocked back anyway. 3 times on the porch rail, and from somewhere out in the dark, 3 knocks answered. I don't know if it's the same one. I don't know if they followed me somehow, or if this is just what they do. Check on people. Communicate. I stopped trying to figure it out. Now I just knock back and go to bed. It feels like keeping a promise. I'm telling this story now because things have changed. In the last 2 years, I've seen more Bigfoot shows on TV. Not the old kind where people walk around with night vision cameras and never find anything. New ones, hunting shows. They have drones now, thermal cameras, teams of people with rifles talking about bringing one in. Dead or alive. For proof, for science. for the $100 reward one rich guy is offering. I watched one episode where they were in Northern California. Not my mountain, but close. Close enough that my stomach hurt watching it. They had maps, trail cameras. They talked about grid searches and capture protocols. One guy said, "Whatever's out there, we're going to find it." He said it like a promise, like a threat. That's why I'm talking now. Not to show you the video. I'm never showing anyone the video. But to tell you it exists. To tell you I have proof. Real, clear, undeniable proof that they're out there. And to beg you to leave them alone. Here's what I know that the hunters don't know. These creatures are intelligent. Not intelligent. Not trained dog follows commands intelligent. Person intelligent. They communicate. They give gifts. They understand cause and effect. They make choices. When that male backed away from me, he wasn't running scared. He was choosing to leave, to not escalate, to trust that I wouldn't hurt him. And what did I almost do with that trust? I almost put his face on every screen in the world. I almost drew every hunter and researcher and thrill seeker straight to his home. Because I wanted credit. Because I wanted people to believe me. Because I wanted proof to matter more than the thing I was proving. I think about Dr. Webb sometimes, about how angry he was. He was right to be angry. From his perspective, I destroyed something irreplaceable, evidence that could advance science, that could answer questions humans have been asking for generations, that could prove he'd been right all along, and I took that away from him, from everyone. But he never stood in that forest with fish on a rock. He never heard those 3 knocks answering his own. He never looked into those eyes and seen something looking back that understood, really understood. He wanted proof. I got something bigger. I got communication, connection, and you can't have both. The moment you prove they exist is the moment you destroy what makes them worth finding. There's this thing researchers talk about called the observer effect. The idea that observing something changes it, that you can't study something without affecting it. That's true for particles in physics. It's true for animals in the wild. And it's true for whatever these creatures are. The moment we prove they're real, they stop being what they are and become what we need them to be. Specimens, subjects, evidence. Things to study and capture and control. I have the proof in a drawer. I hold it sometimes. I watch it. And every time I remember what it felt like to stand there in that forest with something ancient and aware and choosing to walk away instead of attack, choosing to give instead of take, choosing to trust me with the biggest secret on earth. So I'm returning the favor. I'm telling you they're real. I'm telling you I've seen them. I've recorded them. I have evidence that would hold up in any court, any lab, any scientific journal in the world. And I'm telling you that evidence stays in my drawer. Because some things are more important than proof. If you're out there in the wild and you hear 3 knocks, knock back. If you find fish on a rock or gifts at the edge of your camp, say thank you. If you see something moving between the trees, something too tall and too aware, let it go. Don't chase it. Don't film it. Don't call anyone. Just let it be. Let them be. They've been hiding this long for a reason. We're the reason. The guns, the traps, the need to prove and capture and own everything we touch. They're not missing. They're not hiding because they're scared. They're hiding because they're smart. Smart enough to know what happens when humans find something rare. I could be famous right now. I could be on talk shows. I could have money. Respect. My name in history books, and instead, I'm nobody. A data analyst with a video nobody will ever see in a story nobody has to believe. That's okay. I didn't keep it for me. I kept it for them. Sometimes late at night when I hear those 3 knocks on my fence, I think about walking out there, going into the dark, seeing if one of them is there, having a real conversation, whatever that would look like. But I never do. Some boundaries are worth keeping. Some mysteries are worth protecting. Some secrets are worth dying with. The video is in my drawer. That's where it's staying. And when I'm gone, I've left instructions. The phone gets destroyed. No cloud, no backup, no evidence left behind. Just this story, just my word. And maybe that has to be enough. Because I'd rather die knowing I kept a promise than live knowing I broke one. I'd rather be nobody who protected something than somebody who destroyed it. I'd rather have those 3 knocks on my fence twice a year than 47 seconds of fame that cost them everything. So that's my answer. If something brought you a gift, looked you in the eyes, and trusted you with the biggest secret on earth, would you betray that trust for proof? I hope you do what I did. I hope you choose them over evidence, over fame, over everything. Because that video in my drawer, it's not proof they exist. It's proof that some things are worth more than proving. And that's the only truth that really matters.